I want you to imagine something. Imagine raising your right hand and swearing an oath to defend your country, to put your service before self, to trust your battle buddies with your life. Now, imagine that the real enemy isn't on the battlefield. It's within your own ranks. Imagine trying to speak up and being silenced. Imagine trying to seek justice and being punished instead. No, this isn't a hypothetical. This is military sexual trauma, also known as MST. Welcome to Thriving Beyond MST. My name is Dalia, and this is more than just a podcast. This is a movement. Because I'm not just here to share my story, I'm here to prevent more stories like mine and countless others. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself and providing insight into the why behind this podcast. I grew up in East Los Angeles, East Los, came from humble beginnings and had a loving, supportive family that was deep-rooted in faith. All of this shaped my resilience long before I ever put on a uniform. Before the military, I worked in the beauty industry as a cosmetologist, helping people feel seen. Then, as an intensive care unit nurse, I helped people heal. So you see, caring for others has always been my calling. So when I joined the military, I believed in the mission. Even though I wasn't too familiar with the military culture or how it worked, I believed in the brotherhood and sisterhood that I heard others talk about. Like many of you joining the military at a young age, this was supposed to be a time of proud service to my country, of self-discovery, and newfound independence. Well, if you can call it that. It was definitely an opportunity to explore and learn, all within what I thought was a safe, close-knit community that I was supposed to trust with my life in a battlefield, no less. However, no one prepared me for the course of conduct that shook me to my core, and the deep sense of betrayal that I experienced when one of those people that I was supposed to trust became the one that hurt me. Military sexual trauma, MST. Those 3 letters carry a weight that most people will never understand unless they've lived it, and I have. Over almost 2 decades, I have come to understand that MST isn't just about the harassment or assault incident. It is not isolated. It's about the silence that follows, the fear, the pain, the oftentimes impossible burden of proof that is put on the victims, the shame, the self-guilt, the isolation, the way survivors are often cast out while perpetrators are promoted, put into leadership positions, and often allowed to stay in. And the list goes on. Many survivors, as I did, survive, push forward, build a life. I moved up the enlisted ranks to NCO in the Air Force before commissioning into the Army. But make no mistake, all of this required an extraordinary amount of energy, faith, focus, and mental agility. Surviving is exhausting, even more so when done in isolation. And your physical and mental health pay a big price for this. Still surviving isn't enough. We deserve more. After I retired last year, I had a choice. Either stay silent or speak up. And not just for myself, but for everyone who never got the chance to. I chose to fight, and I know I'm not fighting alone. If you've served, or if you love someone who has, you know the truth. The truth is that MST isn't rare. The VA reports that 1 in 3 women, and 1 in 50 men in the military report MST. 1 in 3 women. Now, of course, that has something to do with the ratio of men to women in the military. But still, 1 in 3 women is unthinkable. And that's just those who speak up. So there are others who never speak up. Over 8,000 service members were assaulted in a single year, according to a 2023 DoD report. And survivors of MST are at a higher risk of PTSD, depression, substance use and abuse, suicide, and many other things. Let's sit with that for a second. This is not just a military issue. This is a human issue. And the consequences are not just personal, they are systemic. When survivors don't get justice, when leadership looks the other way, when survivors are medically discharged while perpetrators continue their careers, we send a message that says, this doesn't matter. But it does. You matter. Still, for decades, the system protected predators instead of survivors. This was just the horrible reality. But it became impossible to hide when in 2020, a tragedy forced the world to finally pay attention. Army Specialist Vanessa Guillen was murdered after experiencing sexual harassment within her unit at Fort Cavazos, formerly Fort Hood. Her tragic death shook the system, and it sparked a movement that led to real change, including the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act, which took sexual assault cases out of the chain of command, for the most part. Independent prosecution of sexual assault cases, making it more difficult for commanders to cover for perpetrators. And a restructuring of military justice, which finally made sexual harassment a crime under the UCMJ. Her awful death forced action. But the reality is that it never should have come to that. And there is still more work to be done. So now the question is, what do we do next? Reform isn't enough. We don't just want justice for survivors, although that's a start, but we want to make sure there are no more victims. For too long, survivors have remained silent, have had to bury their pain, and moved on without justice. But change is happening because more survivors are speaking up. Our voices are getting louder. And we are here to make sure that momentum never stops, that laws continue to shift, and leaders are held accountable. But also leaders who contribute and help are recognized. Even in the hardest moments of my journey, I was able to find people who stood by me outside of my immediate family. These were leaders who believed me, peers who lifted me up, and fellow survivors who reminded me that I wasn't alone. This was big. For them, for all of them, I am deeply grateful. They showed me that even within a broken system, there are those who fight for what's right. And because of them, because of all of them, I kept going. And because of my own experiences, as hard as they were, I've had the honor of being that person for others. I've walked alongside survivors, held space for their pain, and was able to remind them of their strength when they couldn't see it in themselves. And that is one of the greatest gifts to come from my journey. Not just the surviving piece, but the being able to turn pain into purpose, deep pain into deep purpose. And that is something that I carry with me every single day. That's why Thriving Beyond MST exists. Because this isn't just my story, it's ours. And together, our voices will inspire meaningful change for the future and for those who come after us. So our mission is clear: driving change, empowering survivors, and holding systems accountable. To achieve this mission, we have 4 goals, and they are as follows. 1, to empower survivors beyond survival, by building a supportive community that offers hope, promotes meaningful healing, and inspires individuals to thrive, and ensures that no survivor feels alone in their journey. 2. Create a future where MST is rare, not routine, by advocating for survivor-centered policies, stronger legal consequences for perpetrators, and education that prioritizes prevention and accountability. 3. Advance conversations and demand action by leading initiatives that transform military culture, increase awareness, and hold leadership accountable through policy reform and survivor-led advocacy. And 4. Ensure that justice is not an exception but the expectation by connecting survivors with legal, mental health, and advocacy resources so they have the support, protection, and rights they deserve. We don't just talk about change. We track it, advocate for it, and make sure it happens. Our vision is a future where MST is the exception, not the norm. We envision a future where MST is no longer a systemic crisis it is today, where survivors are not just supported, but the system is transformed to prevent others from being victimized. And this is so important. Where our voices, our actions, and our advocacy help create systems so effective that survivors receive immediate survivor-centered justice. Cultures so transformed that silence is never the expectation and reporting is met with action instead of retaliation. And accountability so strong that those who commit harm are held fully responsible, without question, without cover-ups, without loopholes. Thriving Beyond MST isn't just about healing the past. It also has a lot to do with building a future where no one has to survive what many of us have. So this podcast is for you. If you're a survivor seeking healing, support, action, and advocacy resources, an active duty service member who wants to be part of the solution, a veteran who refuses to let the next generation go through what you did, or a family member, friend, or loved one trying to understand and support someone you care about and in need of access to resources, because there are resources for you as well. If you or someone you love needs help, please reach out. I've put together a small list of free confidential resources that I'm going to share with you now, but also you can Google resources for MST survivors and more will pop up. But here are some that I specifically wanted to incorporate into this episode. The first one is Veterans Crisis Line. You can call 988, then press 1, or you can text also at 838-255. This is 24/7 confidential support, Veterans Crisis Line. Next is the DoD Safe Helpline. You can call them at 1-877-995-5247. That's 877-995-5247. Confidential support for sexual assault survivors in the military. Next is Substance Abuse and Mental Health Hotline. You can reach them at 1-800-662-4357. And the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, also known as RAINN with 2 N's, RAINN. You can reach them at 1-800-656-HOPE, HOPE, or the numbers are 4673. So 1-800-656-4673. You can also visit their website at www.rainn.org. That's www.romeoalphaindianovember.org. There are also local veteran service organizations, known as VSOs. Many of them offer free support groups and legal assistance. Next is the National Veterans Legal Services Program. National Veterans Legal Services Program. www.nvlsp.com. They help MST survivors with disability benefits. And last but not least, Protect Our Defenders. This is a legal services program that provides free legal services to MST survivors. And their website is www.protectourdefenders.com. Again, www.protectourdefenders.com. Help is available. You are not alone. If there are more resources that you need or that you cannot find, you can always reach out to me, and I will be giving my contact information towards the end of the episode. But before I do that, and before I close today, I want to take a moment for those who never got the chance to tell their story. To the survivors who suffered in isolation, to the ones who were dismissed, disbelieved, or blamed, to those who were forever silenced by MST. We see you, we honor you, and we will not stop fighting until there are no more stories like yours. If any part of this conversation resonated with you, here's how you can take action. First, subscribe and share this podcast with as many people as you know. 2, engage with us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Thriving Beyond MST, and it's the same across all the social media, Thriving Beyond MST. And last, join the movement. Advocate for MST survivors. Speak up. Believe survivors. Because change is already happening, and we are just getting started. In the next episode, I talk about my personal MST experience and the beginning of my healing journey. I say the beginning because I am still healing. The journey is still happening. And if you would like to share your MST account with me, or would like me to share it on this podcast, as well as any feedback that you want to give, you can send to admin@thrivingbeyondmst.com. That's Alpha Delta Mike India November at thrivingbeyondmst.com. Until then, don't forget, we see you, we honor you, and together we will not stop fighting. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, you are never alone in this. Thank you.